Hi, this is Pastor Heather with The Niche.
Hi everybody, this is Pastor Heather with The Niche. I'm so glad that you guys are joining me today. I just wanted to take a few minutes, and I had mentioned last week when I started the first podcast that I was going to try to maybe connect once a week with my church family and to our community on Facebook and through social media, and just try to highlight what the sermon series is that we are discussing at this point in time. And so with this being the month of February, this is considered the month of love. And so we have started a new series called The Song of Solomon. And it was cute because I'd made a mention that in the building that we were going to maybe have to turn the AC on, because if it got a little too heated in there, then might get a little steamy reading the Song of Solomon. You know, this is a book that isn't taught very much, but there is just some amazing things in the book of Solomon. One, we see that it is an amazing love story. The book of John says that God is love and that he cannot be anything else. That is who and what he is. Well, we are created in the image of God, which means that love is in us also. So what we have from the Father is given to us, and so we can share that with each other. So we see this beautiful relationship of love in the Song of Solomon between this woman who's called the Shulamite woman and a man who is a picture at that time of Solomon. So let's just take a moment and talk about Solomon for a minute. King Solomon is the son and the successor to King David. Solomon is said to be the wisest and the richest man to have ever lived. He wrote the Song of Solomon. He wrote the book of Ecclesiastes. He wrote 29 chapters in Proverbs, and he wrote 2 chapters in Psalms, and I don't remember which 2 exactly they are at the moment. So he was a man full of wisdom that was endowed to him by God. And so this story that he writes, really, when you read it, it is considered to be what they call lyrical poetry. And it could be set to music as something called a canticle. And a canticle is basically a hymn or a chant that's typically taken from a biblical text. And so when we read it, although this isn't poetry that really rhymes like what you would typically think in poetry, but it is poetry when you read it because of the love content, I guess, that's in it. Maybe that's the best way that I can explain it. So there are 3 things that we see. This past week we studied chapter 1 and chapter 2. Each week from there we're going to study 2 chapters because there's 8 chapters in the book of Solomon. We see this intense desire between the Shulamite woman and the man who is representing to be Solomon. We also see this joy of the physical attraction. It's okay to be attracted so long, to your mate or whoever you're dating, or whoever's courting you or whatever. It's okay to have those things if they're kept within the proper context of what God has designed for us. And then we see symbols of physical appearance, she may say something like, your love is sweeter than wine, or something like that. So there's a lot of symbolism that is in there too. But the core of this story is love. Well, when we look at verse 1, it says the Song of Songs, which is Solomon. This is a Hebrew idiom, which basically means, and an idiom is just a phrase or an expression, it's the greatest song of all. It is the love story of all love stories. And so we just see this intense emotion of love coming through this. Well, there's also, and I'm just skimming quickly through some of the highlights just to recap from Sunday. In chapter 2, verse 1, we see a reference to something called the Rose of Sharon and the Lily of the Valleys. Well, the Rose of Sharon is in the hibiscus family, and it's a perennial. And then the lily of the valley is a very delicate little flower, little white flower that has like little bell trumpets, very sweet. It's a perennial also, but both of these names are descriptions of Christ. And I find it interesting that he is being recognized as flowers. And so what we're looking at is beauty. What we're looking at is love, something that smells good. It's beautiful to behold. Because that's what Christ is to us. He is our Rose of Sharon, and he is our Lily of the Valleys. Well, the next thing that I want to just touch on too, the Shulamite woman says in chapter 2, verse 4, she says, "And he brought me to his banqueting house, and his banner over me is love." And what I want everybody to see is this word banner. The Hebrew word for banner represents a flag, or like having a flag wrapped around you. I always think about the Olympics, when they, especially track and field in the summertime, when they win the races for track and field, who first, second, and third place, they always have their flags wrapped around them, or they've got them over their heads, that kind of a thing. That's that banner that we're talking about. But the Lord is also being used with this particular name as well. And we find an expression of this in the book of Exodus through Moses. And it's found in 17, 14, and 15. I'm going to read that very quickly. It says that the Lord said to Moses, "Write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua, that I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven." Israel was in war with Amalek. You can go read the rest of that story. "And Moses built an altar and called its name, 'The Lord is my banner.'" Well, when that name is translated, it is translated to Jehovah Nissi. Church, he is your banner. When you need to be hugged by God, when you need to have his arms wrapped around you and giving you some love, let Jehovah Nissi be the name that you would use. That is that banner over you. He is a banner of love over you that covers you. It's a beautiful description. Well, the last thing that I want to touch on in the Song of Solomon, and this is all just kind of highlighting, there are 4 layers. There's layers to that story. Just as there's layers to a person, there's layers to a relationship. There's layers to everything. The first layer that we see is just the story between a man and a woman, the Shulamite woman and Solomon. We think of Adam and Eve. They're the first couple. They're the first marriage. They're the first. So we see a love story between a man and a woman. Second layer we see is the story, the love story itself between the Shulamite woman and Solomon. The third level we see is the Shulamite woman is being represented as Israel. This was written in the time of Israel. And then the picture of Solomon is symbolic of God the Father. So we see Jehovah to Israel and that love relationship. And then the fourth layer is our most current one. The Shulamite woman can represent the church, which is us. We are the body of Christ. We are the bride of Christ. Okay, and then Solomon is a shadow and type of Christ himself. But all 4 levels represents love. So for the month of February, with it being the month of love, maybe take some time, read the Song of Solomon, and really see what it's saying. But just remember, the core is that God's love for us is eternal. His banner of love over us is forever. All he wants us to do is just say yes to him. So I pray that this little teaching was a blessing to you. And, share it. Share it with somebody else that maybe could use a word of encouragement today. I thank you for giving me the time to be with you all for a few minutes. I hope you all are blessed. Have a great week. God bless you. Bye.